this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Sunday morning chat today a little bit different because speed is of the essence, and I think the fastest way to go over all my Cattleyas, which was the idea for today, is to bring them to the camera. That way I can just film it and throw it out the way. The reason for speed is I got caught up yesterday, visited my sisters, other people dropped in, and I ended up staying a very long time, and I didn't get my watering done. And today I've now got my mounts and my holy clay pots to water, both of which should have been done yesterday. Luckily we've had dull days with no sun, I've had no heat in here, so although stuff is a bit drier than I'd like, it's not the end of the world, but it will be if I leave it today, because it looks like the sun's out. Well, it will be later when it gets up. I'm up, so the sun can follow me. Yeah, so the Cattleya types, they're all over the place. We'll start with this little one. This is in the show area at the moment. I'm not going to attempt to do names, I'll do pop-ups simply because it takes too long and the time I will have is later in the day, not now. Been in bloom for quite a while, the main blooming up here, and these funny little two pseudo bulbs down here that pushed out round the back of the plant, despite being well undersized, half size I would say, they're both blooming. This one's just about to open and the buds are coming on this one as well, so I'm quite pleased with the progress on that. I certainly wasn't expecting those little pseudo bulbs to bloom, but it's been a nice splash of orange, very attractive, and a nice compact plant. Yeah, I like Cattleyas that size, they're easy to handle. So that's that one. Right, I'll get the mounts down now. They're all over the place as well, but these don't get filmed often, simply because until they come into bloom there's nothing really much to say. Now this is out of Big Box Junior, so a present from Beatrix again, but not out of the main big box, and this is Cattleya. Oh, I said I'd do the names later. But what's happened with this one is it was mounted with a very poor, if non-existent root system. It's pushed out this nice new growth, a nice healthy leaf on it, and is producing a good root system. A lot of the root system is tucked in behind, so much of it is attached, which is good. Plants seem to grow better once roots attach, but like I've said before, it's the new roots that attach on a mount, not the old ones. They tend to just stay where you put them, but some of them have gone aerial and a mass of them have come out the back and are pushing in all directions, so it's coming on nicely. I don't know how big this one is supposed to get. It's a division obviously, not a seedling, and potentially it could bloom on that latest growth. It might be nowhere near blooming size, but looking at the size of all the previous bulbs, I'd say it is. I'd say that those bulbs are actually as big as they're going to get, and the latest one is at least as good but a lot plumper, so it could bloom on this new growth. We'll have to wait and see. Right, so let's find somewhere to throw all these. Anywhere will do for now. As I said, I want speed rather than anything else today. I've got three little ones up the back here hiding. This little one is a seedling from the tiny little bulbs. It's growing on. I haven't got a clue how big it's supposed to get before it gets to blooming size. It could be several years off and it might even grow into a monster, but it's grown a good root system, it's attached, and latest growth larger than previous growths. This is what we want. It's only got a single lead on it at the moment, but it has pushed out roots from many parts of the rhizome, not just where that lead is. So yeah, not bad. Coming on nicely, I would say, as a seedling. The plants that make it up, I haven't got a clue. Pop-ups to follow. Hanging places. We'll put them all back later. Right, so this little one is a genuine miniature. It has actually bloomed. It bloomed on its last growth, which was this one. It's a bifoliate. Nice little miniature, it's a nice little plant. Produced a mass of roots all round the back, aerial, attached, massive good root system there. Latest growth is pushing on nicely. I see no reason why that growth shouldn't bloom. It bloomed before, so it should bloom again. So coming on. It's good when you get a miniature, quite honestly, because you know what to expect. And once something reaches blooming size, you really know what to expect, because that's how big it's going to get. Now this is another little tiny one with a name about 8 foot long. It's quite a complex cross, this one. Again, a tiny little plant, lovely new growth coming up here, produced a mass of roots in the last growing season, out of the big box, this one, as was the last one and the one before, just in case I didn't say. So this one is growing on. Looking at the size of the pseudo bulbs, it's difficult to say whether this is a true miniature or not, but given the bulb sizes I've got, this next one, we'll see how it goes. If it remains the same size as the others, it may be a true miniature, but I have no idea at the moment. I'd have to look up some of the names of the bits that make it up. But nice new growth and very good root system, coming on nicely. And next we've got a silly one. You know me with back bulbs and bits that fall off when I'm potting or mounting. I usually just dump them because I haven't got room for multiple plants. But I did do that. That was a piece that fell off the Mackay. And I thought, I'm just going to stick that on a mount. I just happened to have one handy, so I mounted it. It only had this one little growth. It's growing a new growth, and it is producing roots, one of which grew right round here and is still growing. So it's a piece, you know, that's a long way off blooming, probably 3 years at least. But Mackay, when it gets going, grows quite fast. So we have a little mounted version as well as the one in the pot. I don't normally do that sort of thing. It's extra watering, extra care, extra time, all that, you know. There's only so much we can do in a day. Right. And this one is not growing as well as it should be. This is the little stars. The first bloom up here is going over, that needs trimming off, and the other two spikes are hanging in there quite nicely. It's a nice sized plant and it has got quite a few growing leads, but they're not doing it at the moment. The only one, and I'll have to look at the camera now, the only one that's actually growing is round the back here, which is just starting to produce some roots as well. It's ever so difficult looking at a screen and moving your hand because it's back to front. You know, you move your hand that way and it goes the opposite way in the screen. I'm not used to this. But anyway, many growing points on it at the moment, not doing much. But it has produced some new roots, so it's starting to get going. And I don't believe that this is going to really take off until these blooms are finished, quite honestly. Got a feeling they're holding it back at the moment, but nonetheless I'm enjoying the blooms while I've got them. So little stars. Not as impressed with this as I was expecting to be. For some reason I was expecting these blooms to be bigger. But nonetheless it's quite attractive, and it is at least starting to show signs of growing now. The warmer weather, the warmer nights and longer days should pick that one up quite nicely. There, space. Now this one's having a rest. This is the Cernua that had the mass blooming at Christmas time. So it gets watered, but it doesn't get absolutely soaked. This seems to have formed its pattern now. It does have a mass blooming on all its latest growths, and after that's finished it just goes quiet and doesn't do much. And then it starts into growth again, which should be coming soon, I hope, and spends the growing season maturing all those little growths, and then it blooms. So it's established a little pattern now. It's a nice plant. I mean, the wires that are holding that on are totally unnecessary now, and next chance I get, when I think of it, they'll come off, because it's, as you can see, well attached, good root system, and it's still got room for another couple of years growth on that mount. It's not in much moss, so even if the moss goes, it doesn't matter so much because most of the roots are not in the moss, so they would survive even if a few inside stop growing. So you know, it can stay where it is for a while. Oh, this is really difficult working with the screen. It just literally goes the opposite way, like trying to, I don't know, trying to do something in a mirror. You know what it's like. Right, that's that one. Stick that there. I think is that all the mounted ones now? Quick scan round, I think it is. There aren't too many mounted Cattleyas. Yeah, that's all the mounted ones. We've done the one on there. I'll do a couple of awkward ones, but there's one I'm not going to show you, even though it's in the Cattleya Alliance, because it's in a video to come soon. The video's done, but not posted. I'm going to try and lift this out without knocking everything flying, because it lives very close to the glass. Oh, and it's heavy. Out you come. Alright, so this is Pradit Spots, and I say it, they. There's actually 4 plants in there. I bought one, and when I repotted it, it had 2 plants in it. And then one came in the big box, and again when I repotted it, it had 2 plants in the pot. They both came from the same place. So I just thought, well, all 4 of those, it doesn't grow big, can go in a community pot. A community holy clay pot, in fact. It's growing well. It's produced last year's new growth, so these larger ones here. I suppose it's possible that they could bloom. Not showing signs of doing it yet, but it's a nice sort of low growing, I won't say miniature, but compact plant, bifoliate again. This is what the new growths look like. Yeah? So we do have some new growths pushing up. And a massive root system. The root system's gone mad, and for such a small plant the roots are really fat and chunky. You know, these are really big strong roots. They don't seem to want to stop growing either. Some have attached, come out through the holes and attached, some have gone round inside, some have stuck out and become aerial roots, but it's got a good root system, that's the important thing, and it did grow a lot last year. So we'll see how that progresses. A non-bloomer so far, but I'll put that back in a minute. That's easy to knock stuff over with that one. Right, a couple more awkward ones. Let's move some stuff out of the way. I keep saying I've got loads of hanging space, but there is a limit, and I think I might be approaching it. I need another hanging rack somewhere, so that I can get some more stuff up near the roof. Right. Stuff all over the place here. Right, this one is interesting. Very interesting, in fact. This is the apple blossom, and it doesn't seem to grow that well for me. It's only ever produced 1 growth, you know, on a lead, but potentially it may now do 2. This is the lead down here. Where is my camera? Without the leaf in the way. So it branched off into this one, which then bloomed. Then it branched again for this one, and that's its largest bulb it's ever grown. And there is an eye at the base of this previous growth, but it's so far only ever pushed out 1 growth at a time, and I've seen other versions of this plant where it pushes out multiple leads, so this one's a bit of a slacker. But what we do have is a very nice spike. Very nice spike. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it looks like 6 buds in there on that spike. And these are reasonable sized blooms, but and they are very attractive in their coloration, but we grow this for the fragrance. Seriously, it's one of the best. But nonetheless, blooms to come on that one, so coming along. Right, this is where we start putting things on the floor and then turning around and treading on them. Right, what have we got here then? Oh, this one's not long finished blooming. No, in actual fact it hasn't. This one pushed up its latest growth and was blind. It hasn't bloomed from that sheath. And that's the first time this one hasn't bloomed on its latest growth. It did abort a new growth last year, but then pushed out another one. And at the moment, that's the latest lead here, with what appears to be a blind sheath. What it's doing now is just starting its next growth, singular. And I don't see any signs of a growth push. There's a possibility that that eye might push as well. But I got a feeling that's been there a while and hasn't, so probably not. But we do have a new growth coming, and it's got a good root system down in the pot and around the place, and there are some new roots growing in this area, the main sort of front of the plant. So not bad. It's one of these that can't make up its mind whether it's a bifoliate or not. It's got 2 bulbs on there that have both got 2 leaves on, and the rest have only got 1 leaf. So it's one of those confused individuals. Right, so that's that little bit. Then the 2 rescue Cattleyas. What have we got then? We've got this one that's doing absolutely nothing. And I mean absolutely nothing. This hasn't moved for some considerable time, so there's really not much to say about that, apart from it's still hanging on to its old leaves, and it has got a few roots, and some of these roots are now branching very poorly, but something's going on. Maybe this growing season it'll push up a decent new growth, but it's doing nothing at all at the moment. And the other rescue one is the one that got repotted not too long ago because it did start producing new roots. So I wanted to remove the oldest part of the plant and get it in another pot. So this one didn't grow a bad new growth. You know, considering this was a seriously infected plant with Fusarium, and hopefully we've sorted that out. But the new roots were potted in, they are growing, so something is happening, but there's still no sign of yet another new growth. So I'm just waiting on that to do something. But of the pair, which are the same, this is the one most likely to push on. But incredibly slow progress with those 2. They haven't really grown at all for about 2 years now. Trying my patience. If it wasn't for the bloom, they'd have been out on their ear roll a long, long time ago. Very long time ago. I just put up with them. Just about. But only just. Right. We'll get this one down. Or out. Carefully. This is one that catches on everything as I move it and knocks things over. So we'll do this gently. This is the Make-A. It is going. The blooms are now, whoops, the blooms are now going. Quite an unusual thing. Loses all of the markings and goes totally plain as the blooms drop. But I mean, this is the first time it's bloomed for me, so it's been interesting to see. Opened really dark and then became paler and paler and paler until it became almost white. That's how it works, apparently. This has got new growths coming out all over the place, quite honestly. Here, 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 here. So there's lots, and it is starting to get its root system going. When that was potted, it was a solid mass of old roots, and I didn't want to take them all off, because I thought it's going in a holy clay pot, so it's not going to stay soggy round the base. And it got put in quite a large pot. But if this gets going as it's capable of doing, it will eventually start growing like a weed. And I'm expecting a really good blooming from this, you know, sort of midwinter next year, which seems to be its time. So yeah, I'm expecting a lot from this year. There's signs of new roots in many places. And it's producing new growths, which is what's producing the new roots. So it's coming on. It's not a bad plant. There's a couple of manky leaves on there. If this does a mass blooming and it goes to an Orchid Society show, then I would take some parts of the plant off. You know, there's some old dead canes in here, pseudobulbs, and a couple of manky leaves. And when you get a plant that's really large, removing little bits like that makes no difference. You know, if you've only got 3 leaves and you take one off, it does make a difference. But anyway, I'm well pleased with the way that's progressed. That one's going to have to go back where it came from. knock everything over while I do. That lives close to the glass, the best light I can give it. I'd like to get it up higher, which I might do when I rearrange things next. This one's been in bloom some time now, and probably a classic example of a plant that is not going to produce any new growth until it finishes blooming. Not all orchids work like that, but I've got quite a few that do. So latest lead is here. This is the one with the blooms on, and it's quite possible there's an eye moving away from that lead, so I might end up with two here, because this one looks like it might push at the base, and the other lead round here bloomed here, pushed on this one, which is now currently in bloom, but again on the end of my finger there you might be able to see that eye looks like it might be moving. So we could have more than two leads. I've got two leads at the moment that bloom, and we might get a third or possibly even a fourth. The problem being with this one, again, all the growth is now in this part of the pot, and this part of the pot is empty. So it's probably going to have to come out at some point, but we shall see. But the oldest part of the plant is not going to shoot out, you know, so it's going to be over the side of the pot at some point. But I've been really pleased with the blooms. They've looked good. Don't know how much longer we'll get out of those. Signs of them fading, but it's done well, bloomed, and very attractive. Ooh, stay. What else we got? We got big and blousy up here. This one looks like it's got colour break on the bloom, but it's been like that since I can remember, so I'm not accusing it of having a virus. Basically it grows too well, and it does bloom, although this did have two buds and one blasted. It hasn't done that before, but it's already showing signs of the eye that will push on next, and possibly one behind, but I doubt it. Again, it's a single lead plant. It just progresses one bulb at a time, and each one has bloomed for me, you know, so I'm going back 4. They've all bloomed, but each new growth pushes out its own root system, and it progresses across the pot, and this one's still got room for at least one more growth with roots inside the pot, so it's got at least another year in there. But attractive bloom. Not much fragrance on that one, but it's very early in the day at the moment. Like I say, I've got behind out here, so I'm starting early with this to get it out of the way. Right, we do have red. I did say this would be red with a name like it's got. It's not going to show the true colour because obviously I'm in the dark corner at the moment, but they're just starting to open, these blooms, and we've got 3, 6, we've got 8 blooms on this spike. Very long spike. Very strange growth habit on this one. Bolt upright, no tendency to lean or branch over. This was the latest growth, obviously, the one that's come into bloom, and this had a very, very poor root system when I got it, but since then it's pushed on. Yeah, so it grew a new growth and has bloomed. So when it said it was blooming size, it was right. And underneath that new growth it has produced some roots. So it has a root system now, but I wouldn't say it's brilliant. But I think these blooms are going to be quite attractive. They are a deep red, and at the moment I can see no other colour. So there's no yellow in there or orange, it's just deep velvety red. But that should be opening in, you know, film that again in a week when perhaps the rest of the blooms are open. Ooh, running out of space. Right, next. We'll get Straggly down next. This has always been a straggly plant, but it did actually produce this growth, and this growth did bloom, and like an idiot I didn't take a picture. But what it's doing now is a massive new growth, and this one is behaving itself, yeah, because what it did was headed towards the side of the pot, but the latest growth is coming back in. So the new roots on this growth are going to go straight down in virtually the centre of the pot. But it produced an excellent root system after being potted in its holy clay pot. and we have a nice strong new growth coming at the moment with bulges at the bottom where the roots are going to come from. So and obviously no reason why it shouldn't bloom on that growth. And eventually the older part of the plant, you know, with the tatty leaves and the damaged leaf that was damaged in transport, will eventually come off, and we'll end up with, you know, a more upright, tidy plant. But new growth coming, new roots to come. So doing okay. And get out of the way. I've got a bit more floor space. Oof. Next. Let's get the giant out. Yeah. Now this is the one that you're all waiting for. It's got to be repotted. And I did say we got a new growth and we got some new roots starting. And I'm still going to wait a little bit longer, but not too much longer. I don't want these roots getting too long. They become easily bent and damaged trying to deal with it. But if they're too small, they snap off so easily. You've only got to look at them. So I'm just waiting a little bit longer. But I know you're going to enjoy this, because I've got to get this root system out of that pot. It's got to be done. It's hanging out the side of the pot. So hopefully some of these that are attached and might not come off. A lot of the roots are out through the holes. They might have to be sacrificed. But at the end of the day, it's got to be done, because the only place for that plant to go now is outside the pot. And it's already lopsided. All its weight, its biggest canes, largest leaves are all over one side of the pot. So it's got to be done. No giggling. But that is going to be a fun repot, that one. Well, the repot will be okay. It'll be the getting it out of the pot will be the fun part. But obviously I'll film it. I don't mind everybody having a laugh. It's got to be done though. And soon, that one. And that's a repot that's not on my repot list. Because in theory it shouldn't need doing. It's only the fact that it's grown awkward in the pot. Now this is a little rescue. This one's been being rescued for so long I've forgotten. But it is now rescued. The last new growth is okay and did produce a few roots. It's now got another new growth coming. It's got a root system good enough to support it, and this new growth, now is this, yeah, this is another one, can't make up its mind. There's a pseudo bulb back here with 2 leaves. All the others have only got 1, but those would have been while it was being rescued basically. So in theory it could be a bifoliate, but inside that latest growth is something. Now, I'd like to hope that that's its second leaf and it's going to revert back to a proper bifoliate, and that this new growth has 2 leaves. 2 leaves will feed the plant better than 1 if it's meant to be a bifoliate. But you do get quite a lot of hybrids that can't make their mind up. Anyway, it is rescued, slowly but surely, but it's coming on. And the only reason I'm keeping that is for the blooms, otherwise that would have been long gone. Right, next. Ooh, next. Next is this one. Last, my computer screen's just gone into rest mode. That's actually running the deleting the friends on the Facebook page at the moment, all 1,700 of them. It's got a 1-second interval, the tool, but it's taking about 2 seconds per friend, so it's going to be running a while, but it's been going about half an hour so far, but I can't see what it's doing now, the screen's gone blank. Now this little one here, has this one bloomed? I believe this one did bloom on this, I think that's my spike there, but I can't get past the tripod to look it up. But this one is being very nice, because this one, having bloomed, is producing its new growth with some more roots. That's good. But it's also got a new growth over here, which will also produce some new roots. And some of the older roots are now branching. Yeah? So we've even got branches over here, quite a long way from the plant. So it's already got a root system I'm happy with for the size of the plant. Another bifoliate. There's another one that if it did ever need to come out of this pot will have to be timed dead right. otherwise it will dump its root system. But we've got two new growths on this one, and it's not two plants, they are attached, and I know it's blooming size because it has bloomed, so in theory we should have blooms on both of these new growths, and they'll be staggered, because this one's 1.5 inches long and this one's just over 1/4 inch long, so they'll be staggered, so we should get an extension to the blooming period. But coming on nicely, that one. And this one is a cross that's got one in it, the little lemon drops, that was also in one of the small mounts that we first looked at. So this cross was something entirely different, but nonetheless it's got one parent the same in two different plants. Anyway, coming on. No, two left. Let me just say, is there really two left, or is there any lurking? No, just the two. There's actually a third one, but I'm not showing it today because it's in its own. It's got its own little video. Now, this is the purpurata, and a total non-bloomer, but that's been my fault, lack of knowledge on this one. This is one of those that after the bulbs mature it needs a rest. But in theory the sheath should have been produced as part of its maturing the growths, which it didn't do. So maybe it just hadn't got to blooming size. But anyway, what we have now is two strong new growths, both of which are starting their new root system underneath. This one got repotted because it was hanging over the side and fell out of its pot twice, so it got taken out in the kitchen and strapped in with wires and is now incapable of moving in any direction, so it's absolutely rigid. But the root system it had was active and is branching, so despite its demise it didn't dump its root system, so it can keep going, and now it will produce a very active root system from the latest two growths. And you two had better bloom, or at least one of you. I'm fed up with waiting for this one. I've had it a while now, and it was obviously blooming size when I got it, and it had bloomed when I got it. Signs of a old spike there. So come on, get your act together. Maybe, hopefully. It's in the doghouse at the moment because it's a flipping big plant. It's given me a bit of trouble and it still hasn't bloomed. And the sad character, the last one we're going to look at today, is this one. And this is my Laelia anceps. This is one of my favourite blooms. And the latest two growths from last year did not bloom. That's the first time since I've had it a new growth hasn't bloomed. First time ever. And I have no idea why, apart from the fact that I moved it last year. I read and discussed with Rachel, with hers, that these like to stay cooler. These are not a warm growing Cattleya. So I put this down on the floor where it got the cool breeze from the inlet fan. And what I think that did was dramatically reduce its light level. So you try and adjust one factor and ruin another. So we won't be doing that again. You're staying up in the bright light. I've missed what my favourite blooms. But what we've got on here is two leads, one here, one here. So these are last year's growths with blind sheaths that didn't progress. And new roots are now starting to grow from the base. They will be followed by the new growths. So this one works differently to some other types of Cattleyas. Strictly speaking, it's a Laelia, but I bet it's been reclassified. It's probably a Cattleya now. But basically, the new roots come first, followed by the new growths. Yeah. So it's worth knowing these things with your Cattleya types, because if you know your media is starting to go and you anticipate a repot coming up, you can think about at what point you're going to get your new roots and plan it accordingly. But very large bulbous area here, so that's going to be the new growth, with the possibility of a second one. And again here you've got a bulbous bit at the base of this one and the possibility of another one. If that produces more than one growth per latest lead, I'll be over the moon. And bearing in mind it didn't deplete any energy by blooming, it may well do that. There's even a possibility of a back eye back there pushing. It looks a little swollen. Anyway, we'll have to wait and see, because this one does roots first, followed by growths. Handy to know. So there we go. That's the Cattleya lot. And I'll put pop-ups for their names, because as I said, messing about with the tags and everything takes time, and I didn't have that time. So something a bit different for the Sunday morning chat, because I needed to get everything out of the way so that I can get on with this watering, and then I've got packages to wrap. So I've got a very busy Sunday, and some of these packages might not get done. It depends whether next door are in. I know that sounds daft, but they have newspapers that go into recycling, which is tomorrow when the bin men come, and I haven't got much newspaper left, and I use up a fair bit of that with packaging. So I will get some packaging done, and they'll go off to Postman Pat tomorrow, but some may have to wait. But do me best. I know you've been waiting a while, but I'll do it when I can. And see you next time. Thanks for dropping by. Oh, where's my button? There it is.